But you still got all the hardware in front of you anyway.
Hey everyone, this is Ozzy from Old Dixie Loaders Supply, and I want to introduce to you a couple of my partners here. Tim, the guy in the green shirt over there, he is our chief, our senior partner, and Paul is one of my partners here. Tim is a master armor, gunsmith. Fucking guy's a gunsmith, okay? He hates to say that, but he is. He does all kinds of shit. He is really good at what he does. And I'm going to have you just kind of have him introduce himself a little bit. I'm going to have Paul introduce himself a little bit. That's Tim Michael, and this is Paul LaMonaco. And they're going to tell you, like I said, a little bit about
it.
Yeah, so go ahead. Tim, tell me about you. Tell me about your experience. How long have you been involved with guns?
All my life.
Okay, when did you start working on it?
About 35 years ago.
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really impressive about Tim is he knows everything there is to know about guns. If you're going to ask him a question about a gun, you better have an hour or two available to talk about it. So, all right, Tim. So about AR-15s, because really this talk today is going to be about whether, because we get asked this a lot, whether somebody should buy a budget AR, like a Palmetto State Armory AR versus, a LaRue Tactical, Wilson Combat, Daniel Defense, AR. Knight's Armament. I mean, there's so many really high-end, rifles out there. So
the first thing to think about first is, do you have the budget for it? If you have the budget to buy a gun that's completely done, and you want to spend the money, spend it. But you don't have to.
Yeah. So, Tim, how many ARs have you worked on in your career?
I have no idea.
Thousands?
Armories and yeah, easy.
So thousands. And how many have you built?
Probably 700. From pistols to rifles to competition rifles and AR platform, gas impingement and piston. It's a constant thing. It's a daily thing. It's like working on a Jeep. Everybody has one in this country. 300 million of them.
Wow.
So,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
well, that's not including military. That's 58 years now as the standard battle rifle. The only other gun that's ever survived as long is the M14, and it was put away in 1964, and the M16 became the basic rifle. But they came back in the 80s, they've come back in the 90s, and ever since Desert Storm, they're going full blown. M14 is still the last U.S. government built battlefield rifle. That's the best rifle they ever built. So.
Awesome. So, I mean, you've got a lot of experience. You've done a lot on AR platforms. So, I think that you're very qualified to talk about this, and that's why I'm having you here today, because you know so much about this particular platform, and I know a lot of people have worked on
it. Get me on camera.
That too.
I like being on camera.
Yeah. All right. So, Paul, what's your experience with the AR, and tell us a little bit about you.
Done a couple of tours overseas, some contracting, and we used a lot of different types, different models, different countries have their own variations. But it's got enough lots of jams, and it's a good one. It's a really, really good one.
Just as long as you keep it clean.
Keep it clean. That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
But even in that, the sand, I've never had an issue. Never had a failure.
That's awesome.
Well, the only real issue with the platform is its cleanliness, because it is direct impingement. And that is innately the one problem with it. And if you don't keep it clean, it'll let you down. You can't fire full auto for long. It gets too hot because it's closed bolt. And it gets very, very dirty, and pretty soon it stops functioning. And if that's in the middle of a bad situation, it's not good.
Yeah. So would you say that's one of the reasons to go with a higher end rifle, or does it really matter?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You train yourself to keep the thing clean and know what basic things you have to do, especially in a pinch in the dark. under fire to keep the thing running. You have to be aware of what you're doing, not just the situation you're in. Yeah, like anything else. You'll distress an engine, you'll blow the engine up. So,
So, you know, we were, like I said, we have a lot of people that ask us, you know, should they really buy, you know, can they buy a Palmetto State Armory rifle and is it really good? And honestly, I can tell you that Palmetto State Armory has some of the most incredible, ridiculously incredible prices on ARs. I'm going to show you this one in particular. This is one that I put together from them, and it's really, you know, just fairly basic. But what is impressive about this is I bought the lower receiver from Palmetto State Armory. It is a typical AR lower receiver, but it has the SB Tactical PDW stock. And I got the whole thing, and they're still right now available at $299. Get the fuck out of here. Yes, $299 just the stock alone. If you were to go to SB Tactical, it's $299. So basically you're getting the receiver for
a
nothing.
complete receiver.
Yeah, a complete receiver. It's completely ready. And then I got, so that was $299 for that part. And for the upper, it's a 10.5 inch, 10.5, 11.5.
That looks like a 10 inch.
Yeah, 10 inch upper that I paid with a nitride finish that I paid in 5.56 that I paid, I think it was like another $399 or something like that. And so for about $500, under $600, you can get an AR that's functional. Okay, and
It
they
doesn't have to be a pistol, but it could be a carbine.
exactly, and they have some. I just saw one today. In
The best thing
their
about the whole platform is the trigger group, the lower. You set that up the way you want it. You put the trigger you want in it, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to invest in it anymore. You can get all your uppers. You can get a match grade upper. You can get a piston upper. You can get a rifle, a pistol, carbine, whatever you want. It's 2 pins. You already have the trigger to run it.
So what he's saying is basically, you know, you can use the stock trigger. The stock trigger is not bad. You can change a few springs to make it a little bit better and not spend a lot of money. Or you can get a drop-in trigger and
Again, anywhere from $100 to $700, depending on what you want to put in it. Kind of silly to put a $700 trigger in a basically zero price lower receiver because you just bought the stocks all you did.
yeah.
You know?
But
You can do whatever you want.
so what do you think about these receivers as far as the quality that you've seen in them, you know, from Palmetto? Because we receive a shit ton of them.
It's no sky.
They are forged. They are forged at one of the 3 forges in America. They are still the same U.S. specifications for the military gun. They aren't fancy like an Aero Precision or a Wilson Combat, or they haven't been cut to be a match thing where everything's super tight. They're cut to be a military weapon, and they pass muster. They are the USGI specifications, and everything in the world that's made for them works on that. That's the standard everybody works from. So
So
can't beat them. That's the price. You buy a stock and you get a free receiver that's already put together. You don't have to buy your pin kits. You don't have to buy your trigger group. You don't have to buy anything.
yeah, like I said, I saw one yesterday. They have an AR pistol for $500, $499, complete.
There you go.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Later, if you have more money to spend and you want to put a doodad on it, or you want to put a finger-controlled bolt stop release, or you know the BAD lever, the mag pull stocks, the mag pull grips, whatever you want to do, you can do it later. It just screws on or held in by pins. There are modifications you can make to them, which are upgrades over the years that you can do simply. I mean, if you're going to change stock all the time, well, you can control your rear takedown pin and spring. You can thread it. You know, put a keeper in there, a little quarter set screw to keep it so you can take stock on and off without tearing the spring up. Lots of little things you can do. Drop-in triggers, extended mag releases, extended bolt stops, all kinds of things. This one has the extended bolt stop. You know, which means you just reach up and hit it. That's one of your favorite things, I think.
Yeah, it is. I put it pretty much on every one of my rifles. But so essentially what we're saying is you can always go with a mil spec lower, and you can always change it. You know, add things to it, make it better if you want to get a better upper.
90% of all the lowers are mil spec. That's what they try to do. I mean, most of the companies that make them, they either buy them from one of the three forges or they make their own and they're cast. There's a big difference in quality there. I mean, they meet specs, they cut them out once they're cast, but then you find companies that don't get the cast lines out, they don't, you know. Cast metal is pot metal. It's not quite as good as forging. Forging is hotter and it's more streamlined, it's more finesse. The metal that's in the mold it's just less air pockets. I mean, when you break a casting, you'll find air pockets and all kinds of problems. Well, a receiver can fail. The best, of course, are milled, where they actually take a CNC machine or they take a mill and they cut them from a billet. And as long as their specs are correct, that's a really high-end one. But then again, you're going to spend as much for a receiver like that as you could for a whole upper for a gun.
So,
As long as it shoots.
yeah, I guess there's no
Well, I
question
mean,
about that.
what's the plan? Is it to be a show gun? I mean, are you gonna
No, I think
just
it's
have it something that you can put your little doodads on and all your lights and make it heavy, or is it gonna be a protection gun? Are you gonna use, the idea of that is smaller, lighter, more maneuverable, less things to worry about on the gun. It's just take the safety off and fire it.
Yeah, it makes sense. So what?
You close combat situations
Yeah.
inside building, did you screw with all the stuff that you put on your gun?
No, we had it full size, they held it in mag.
Exactly. It was just run, bitch, run now while I need you.
Don't break down.
Yeah, right now, don't break down.
Yeah. So, what do you look for when you're picking up an AR?
So I like this category because I have 3 kids and I have the old budget. So stocking up on something cheaper for myself, it's gonna run the same as the expensive ones. That's what I look for. I like to do the bargain shopping. I always get the emails about CNN, all the uppers, full uppers for $100 that you can slap on the frame. If you have this lower piece, you can do anything you want. You can go smaller, larger, you might have to change the string with a buffer, but
When you talk about price, we're talking about the SB Tactical Close Quarters Battle Stock. Well, here's another SB Tactical stock, which actually just fits right on your
Yep.
buffer tube,
yep.
just like all the rest of them do, except the difference is, probably was it, what would it be, 60, 70 bucks just for this piece?
Yeah. But you're keeping this stock.
And it
too.
still qualifies as a pistol stock, even though
They're braces and
they're braces, yeah.
So
The idea is
Just
technically with these straps, they're supposed to be able to be put over your arm and held in one
Yep,
hand. And
yep.
I don't know many people that do that, but
well,
it can be done.
yeah. I mean, the bottom line is we are not advocating that anybody use these stocks
As
stocks. These are all braces. They're pistols. These are all considered AR pistols, and they will remain as such in our discussions.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is one that Tim actually had worked on himself, and I'm gonna let Tim tell you about it. So.
Well, the receiver on this is a 0% receiver. I made it here on our own milling machine, so I could get away with not serializing it because I made it for myself, and that's a gun that I carry for protection. Lightweight, easy to carry, just so it sling over my shoulder. I made the receiver as light as possible, cut out everything to make it very light because it's not going to be really a battle rifle. I'm not going to be jumping off of something and hitting the ground and worrying about shattering it. It's very, very lightweight. But I would have no problem building them on Palmetto State loaders. I've had several guns built on Palmetto State loaders. When I built a high dollar gun, last gun I built was about an $1,800 gun, but then again, it was a parts gun assembled from parts that were all the best in the business. Arrow precision loaders, uppers, Noveske barrels, Trutcon optics, every little doodad. I mean, the BAD assist lever, the extended, everything was the very best name brand that I could buy, and I had all the parts. So out of boredom, I just put a really expensive gun together, and yeah, it was a great gun. It was an 80,000 round receiver bolt and carrier group, all the failed zero. The receiver had been ion bonded, so it was an 80,000 round receiver. The bolt, hammer, carrier group was all ion bonded, which is failed zero, or I think WD makes them.
Yeah.
You can find out that ion bonding was actually designed for using these weapons in sand and running them dry and not have the wear issues. So having so much desert warfare lately, they've had a lot of testing going on, and they've seen what the dust storms and sand does to these things, and they found out what can fight it. But then again, do you want to pay $300 for a bolt carrier and hammer and another $350 for a ion bonded receiver, another $250 for a ion bonded upper receiver when you can buy them for $50-$60? You don't have to buy all that stuff. You can just put a gun together that will run. USGI specs requires a 20,000 round lifetime in a barrel and an operating system. People today usually shoot in their lifetimes much more than that. The military average, I believe, is still 1,500 rounds in a career soldier's lifetime, unless he's actually in combat. So the guns are designed to stand up to it, and if they don't, well, they're replaced. But we can't do that. If you've got X amount of money to spend on a platform, and you don't need to have a whole bunch of them unless you collect them, you want a gun that's going to last as long as you can afford it to last. But then again, especially in the environment we're in, you can't find a lot of ammo. Right now, ammo is an issue, so are you going to build a gun for $500 or $600 and then spend thousands and thousands of dollars buying ammo? If you build a protection gun, you'll shoot it to make sure it runs every once in a while, keep it clean, and you'll keep your stockpile of ammo. So that's the kind of gun that you keep in your safe or whatever you do for protection.
So what makes, these expensive guns, what makes them so expensive? What is it about them?
More than likely, it's the name. Companies that manufacture Noveske got really big, really special military contracts for special forces, for SOCOM. I believe Delta Forces used some Noveske built weapons. Well, they have top-end quality. They built guns that survived the rigorous test that the military put them through, and they were accepted. Once they're accepted, now they've got a name. And once they've got that name, you pay more. And it's not that it's that much better than, it's not that Noveske is any better than, say, Knight's Armament. It's not that it's better than HK or Sig Sauer. It's that contract was accepted. They can say, hey, we supply weapons to the military, to the special forces. That makes us special. And we're going to charge you an extra $300 for the barrel. The Noveske barrel, pistol barrels up through the carbine barrels are anywhere from $400 to $700. When you can buy a really nice barrel for $125, still a hammer forged back and cut. Military accepted USGI barrel. You buy it because you can, if you can afford it. Arrow Precision, Knight's Armament, Wilson Combat, these guys make really, really good receivers, but they're USGI spec. They have to meet a form that's handed to them that they produce a weapon that meets all the criteria that whatever military group contracted them to build a prototype, it has to meet those specs. And if it's accepted, they all have to be built at those specs. So far that I know, except in a few occasions, and most of us don't even really know what those are because we're not, it's considered top secret, but when the government puts out dark bids for clandestine type organizations, things that they actually do out there that we're not even supposed to know they're doing, well, those specs we don't know anything about for those weapons unless someone gets their hands on them. And so outside of that, U.S. military, that's the base. It's a military weapon. The most important weapons in America have always been the weapons that, oh, excuse me.
Sorry about that. But we're actually supposed to be working today, so yeah, we are.
Don't
But
tell them about
We're
Yeah.
not working, we're playing. So you know, like every weapon since the Revolutionary War, that's always been the weapon of the day. That's what people understand about our Constitution and about the Second Amendment. We should have the ability to be able to stand off a rogue government, which we won't really get into here. But that's one of the reasons why the right to bear arms is so important, because it means that we should be able to bear the arms that our own military and anyone opposing force standing against us might have. During the Civil War, all the cannons in America were owned by individuals. They were the landowners, they were the wealthy people. They formed their own brigades and battalions, and they supplied the cannons. The government supplied some for the regular army, they supplied them for the standing militias, but most of the people that fought in the Civil War on both sides were wealthy, landowners, whatever, that from either the North or the South came in, and because they could afford to, they bought the cannons, which were made in France, they were made in England, they were made in Germany, and so the field pieces were privately owned. Today, I don't think people would stand for you having a 72-ton M1 Abrams sitting on your front porch, but literally, you should be able to have it if you can afford it, and you are not a crazy person. But then again, that's kind of, people get real antsy when there's a
howitzer tank,
120 smoothbore cannon,
tank or something, yeah.
pointing around the neighborhood. They get a little itchy about
And
that.
that's like a budget one.
Yeah. So we're a little off track there,
Right, well, no,
talking
the
about
point
that.
is,
But, yeah.
that the guns of the day, we should be able to build and keep and maintain and use any weapon system that our military uses. Because what is a civilian militia to start with? If bad things that everyone's always talking about happen, you're going to need weapons that are interchangeable with your military, with your law enforcement. It's the way to go. And it's a good platform. It has pros and cons. Every platform does. It has issues. Most of them in all these 58 years have been solved. But then again, it survived 58 years as a frontline weapon. And it's not only carried by us, it's carried by multiple countries around the world, NATO countries that shoot the same ammo, shoot the same platform. Everybody says, well, this is wrong with it, that's wrong with it, but they said that about the M14 and the M1 Garand, and they said that about the 1903 and the 1917, all through history. There's been issues with guns. No one liked the 1868, but once they put a trap door in it and could start putting cartridges in it, well, they liked it better. But then it was still just a one-shot gun. But you didn't have to run backwards while you're trying to pack another round in. You could just lift the gate and put a round in. So it was repeatable.
Yeah. So, obviously, you don't need to get, the high-end AR necessarily, because you can always start with a platform, like from Palmetto State Armory, and build on it as you can afford to.
It's the way to go.
Yeah.
It really is. Like I said, if you're even interested in this, well then the truth is you don't want to spend $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 for a gun right off the bat, because it still won't be complete. You're buying so much of that as a name, an established name that has military contracts, so you're paying that extra premium just for the name of the weapon. Daniel Defense got its start with military contracts. LaRue got its start with military contracts. JP Enterprises. Noveski. HK and SIG, HK was strictly a military arms company. They didn't want to ever sell to civilians. They didn't until they had to. So why not start as cheaply as you can with an operating system, and then as you find doodads that you like, you can just buy the doodad. It doesn't break the bank. You can put like you've got the light and you've got the side mounted. You know, I like simple. I've had so many of them that were all the way at the top end of the line and didn't mean anything to me, and I didn't use half the gear. So this is what I carry around. It's lightweight. It's got a set of flip-up sights. You know, I don't have to worry about anything else but feeding, and it feeds and goes back. So
Yeah, you know, there's a tool for every job, and this specific one is more for close quarter battle. And you know,
except you can't push that stock in.
yeah, we won't discuss that. All right.
Oh no, I mean,
and that was your.
You wanted an extended takedown pin.
Your fault.
But that's all right, because you see, I'm going to take your extended takedown pin out for you,
Yeah.
and I'm going to put it on here since I only have a front one. 'Cause
That's
I didn't have
fine.
to.
You know, and that's really the one that you really need anyways. But you know, so you know,
Either
we're
that,
not.
or you could give me your stock, and I'll just put it on
Yeah,
this
no,
guy.
that's not going to happen.
Oh, okay.
So you know, we're not dissing anybody's company, and they're all massively incredible, good companies that produce fantastic products. But we're discussing: do you really have to go that route to get a decent starter AR? And you don't, and that's our point.
And just so you know, we're not just promoting Palmetto State
Yeah,
Army.
no, we're
I mean,
not. We don't make any
Anderson
money
Arms,
from them.
They make
No.
a
Yeah.
quasi mil-spec receiver. Sometimes it's been an issue and things had to be done to it, but I think they've gotten better, so they're pretty much staying within, you know, USGI spec. People are buying them like crazy. It's a basic receiver.
I think
Excellent receiver.
I think the reason we're talking about Palmetto State Armory right now is they're really inexpensive, and
they've got the
their
best
quality
deals out
control is good. And if you have a problem with it, you can call them, and
Customer service,
they'll
yeah.
make it even. They'll make you whole.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. If you buy a cheaper product from a company that doesn't have good customer service and won't, you know, send you out something if it's messed up or whatever, or make you whole in some way, I think that's real
You've got
important.
base AR, right?
I have a budget one and I have an expensive one.
What's your receiver on the budget?
Palmetto.
Okay.
Yeah, Palmetto.
And what about your fancy gun?
Fancy gun was made by the
Is it a complete unit?
DOF, right?
DOF made it.
COF, excellent company, no spec. But they do make some really top end stuff. They make a lot of those extras we're talking about.
Yeah. I have this one. I have a DOF, and I have a Double Star AR. And Double Star was one of the first companies to be producing mil-spec lowers, weren't they? Or mil-spec
Double
parts.
Star, which has always been a name that no one knew, was actually behind the scenes all the way back in 1964, producing all of the small parts kits for Colt and the U.S. government and Armalite.
Did I tell you he knows
Why?
everything? That's why he's in on this.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just that Double Star
History.
wasn't trying to be out front and be known. They formed their corporation basically, the same owners, the same husband and wife owner. They built their corporation to supply the weapons makers with the proper part. If you find a Double Star gun today or a receiver that's built by Double Star, lower parts kits by Double Star, they make the very best 1911 frames out there now. I mean, nobody is producing them forged like Double Star still is, but they're expensive. And people go, well, I've never even heard of them. Well, that's because they weren't always out there pushing. Oh, they could have said all along they supplied all the parts for the military for all these decades, almost 6 decades now. Well, you know, so excellent. Double Star, can't beat it.
So, I mean, there are a lot of options out there that you can go with, and I just wanted us to talk about a few of those options, and, you know, with somebody who really knows the platform like Tim does, and Paul.
You ran it more than
And,
anybody else.
Yeah, and, you know, Tim was a contractor at one point as well, and he understands, you know, how important a reliable firearm is because his life is dependent on it. And,
Not on that.
huh?
My life depended on a Barrett.
Yeah, 50 cal.
Very, very
So-
good.
Yeah.
Very next
So yeah, we'll be having some other shows, but I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be doing another one in the near future. Okay, so thanks again, and talk to you later.